got him four abreast, often imitated, never duplicated, the greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Online Sim Racing Network as we break land speed records with the PRL. Tonight is the established traffic control. This is the established traffic control. Round 9 of 13, season number 9, Precision Racing League AMSOIL American Iracing Sunday series, brought to you by AMSOIL, specializing in synthetic lubricants for vehicles and equipment, and they are the first in synthetics. Check them out at amsoil.com. And the series brought to you in part by Transdo.ca, the Transdo Cup. And Transdo specializes in flatbed transport services. That's Transdo Transport and Logistics. Check them out, Transdo.ca. And commentator Sean Zulu. And that PA in the booth is Johnny Pierce and David Evely joining me. How you guys doing tonight?
Oh, Sean, we're doing great.
And how are you, Dave?
I'm here, just ready for all this tricky triangle.
Absolutely, indeed. Same here. Had an amazing race last week at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and that race was entitled the Ford Entertainment Group PC Sales. That's Ford Entertainment Group PC Sales, brought to you by one of our drivers, 95, of Jeffrey Ford. And speaking of that race, we had a new winner in that race. He had his first win. GRG Racing driver Ian Lane brought it home for his first win. Christian Swenson came out second. Paul D. Johnson third. Craig Hawkins fourth. Joshua Witherspoon fifth. Cotton Lane sixth. Michael Knight seventh. Josh Bachman eighth. David Dreckman ninth. And Kyle Souza did round up the top 10. And ladies and gentlemen, an interesting fact from last week's race, we had all 4 GRG Racing drivers finish in the top 10. I repeat, all 4 GRG Racing drivers finished in the top 10. So Ian Lane finished first, Joshua Witherspoon finished 5th, Michael Knight finished 7th, and Josh Bachman finished 8th. And that placed all of them as a team in the top 10. That was a success by GRG, and they did amazing as a team. Teamwork did definitely make the dream work in that race. Well, moving on to our current points standings, we have James O'Brien still leading in points. Kevin Whitaker second, Craig Hawkins third, Richard Regan Jr. fourth, Christian Swenson fifth, Kyle Souza sixth, Stephen Aguiar seventh, Joshua Witherspoon eighth, Ian Lane ninth, and Michael Knight rounding up the top 10 in the points standings. And these teams right here, so James O'Brien, once again, Road Trip Racing, Kevin Whitaker, Gen X Racing, Craig Hawkins, Old Schools Motorsports, Richard Regan Jr., Gen X Racing, Christian Swenson, Gen X Racing, Kyle Souza, Rim Riding Racing, Stephen Aguiar, Gen X Racing, Joshua Witherspoon, GRG, Ian Lane, GRG, and Michael Knight in the top 10 with the GRG Racing team. Well, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to tonight's race, we are racing at the Tricky Triangle, Pocono Raceway, going around for 80 laps. That is 80 laps. Well, Johnny, what are we dealing with tonight?
Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a completely rescanned new surface on this track. This track was repaved recently, and iRacing went out with their laser scanners, and it's really amazing the work they do when they go out and they get every little detail of this track. Tonight, we've got a brand new track, a fresh repave. These guys are talking about there is a ton more grip. They got rid of a lot of the bumps going into turn 1, so the cars aren't upsetting. They're not wanting to push up the hill as much, so you get a little better side-by-side racing. The grip is good. Also tonight, we're cloudy again. The weather's a little cooler. We're looking at an 87-degree track, so there's a ton of grip out there on the track tonight, and I expect to see a different winner tonight. We've had 8 races thus far in this series. We've had 7 different winners, and I think we're going to see a repeat of that tonight. I think we're going to see a first-time winner tonight, and he's going to lock in that chase. It's going to give him his golden ticket to the Chase Championship at the end of the season.
Absolutely, man. I like the way you summed everything up nicely. And yes, we're gonna expect a lot of side-by-side action. And this track being as long as it is, 2.5 miles, that's 2.5 miles in length with a lot of straightaways, which means the draft plays a very key role. And like we saw last week at Charlotte, some drivers who had some damage. Well, in the case of, let's take, for example, Road Trip Racing driver Paul D. Johnson, had the worst looking machine, well, one of the worst machines out there known to mankind, but was still able to finish in the 3rd place spot. But tonight, Johnny, something tells me that's not going to happen.
Well, just as I was saying earlier, we're going to probably see a new winner. We're going to see another guy tonight win this race. We're looking at Paul D. Johnson. I believe this is his first pole of this season.
Oh, indeed, yes. And speaking of the grid is now ready as the drivers lined up in a new format. Just like NASCAR, I love it. Paul D. Johnson is your pole sitter. Stephen Aguiar second. Joseph Yankins is back after not being here last week. It's good to see Joseph Yankins back, starting 3rd. Craig Hawkins 4th. Kevin Whitaker 5th. Seth Silverio 6th. Christian Swenson 7th. Ian Lane 8th. Richard Regan Jr. 9th, and Jeffrey Ford rounding up the top 10.
That is very nice how iRacing's got the cars gridding here at this track. I would imagine that's part of the rescan. They're setting sideways in the pits, much like what you see on TV. And then as we get to watch them roll off right now.
Absolutely, that is amazing. You see right there, Craig Hawkins falling in line behind, ahead of 5 of Kevin Whitaker. And off pit road, they go behind the pace car. And tonight looks like we have about 20 drivers. That's 20 drivers starting tonight's race. Pocono race with a tricky triangle. The established traffic control, round 9 of 13, season 9.
I had a chance to watch some of the NASCAR, the actual NASCAR Cup race earlier this afternoon, and the cars are really spreading out. We got these nice long straightaways, so just wasn't seeing a lot of side-by-side action. So it's really going to come down to tire wear, trying to get that long-run car back together. I was talking to numerous drivers earlier. Everybody's saying the same thing. We're good for about 15, 20 laps, then the car gets really, really loose on us. Now, I did speak with Gen X team earlier, and they said they seem to have found something that's going to help them out a little bit with that situation. So it'll be interesting to see, does Gen X have the stuff to take it to overcome what we're having? The problem we're having is the left rear tire in the sim gets really hot, and as throughout the run, as that tire gets hotter and hotter, these cars just get slicker and slicker, and they're just hard to hold on to. But Gen X says, they've got the ticket to beat that tonight.
And something tells me they're not going to give that away.
I pried, and they just they shut me down.
As the pace car dips off, green flag is now out for the first time this time around. 14 of Paul Johnson finds the pedal, and so does the 5-1 of Joseph Yankins, being a helping hand. We are green flag racing, lap 1 of 80. Established traffic control, that's established traffic control. Round 9 of 13, season 9, Precision Racing League AMSOIL American Iracing Sunday Series, specializing in synthetic lubricants for vehicles and equipment. They are the first in synthetics. Check them out at amsoil.com. Also brought to you in part by Transdo Cup, transdo.ca, specializing in flatbed transport services. Green Flag Racing. 23 of Craig Hawkins so far trying his best to hold off these hungry lions. 81 of Seth Silveri here able to stay behind Hawkins, as here looks like the 8 of Stephen Aguiar was able to stay ahead of Craig Hawkins. And now the first place through 5th place include Paul Johnson, Joseph Yankins, Stephen Aguiar, Craig Hawkins, and Seth Silverio.
Well, Paul Johnson's out front now, and he showed the fastest time in qualifying. He showed the fastest time in practice. The question is, these guys are all telling me 15 to 20 laps is when that looseness starts coming into the car. And it's going to be interesting to see how long Paul Johnson can keep that machine out front.
Oh, indeed. And also last week, Johnny, we noticed that his teammate, James O'Brien, our defending champion, a 3-time PRL champion actually, we noticed he started in the back of the pack last week at Charlotte, but ended up getting up front before too long. Basically, he bullied his way through the field. How possible do you think that's going to be tonight with the new conditions?
You know, James has proven time and time again he's got what it takes to get to the front. He knows how to get to the front. So right now we're looking at him. He's back in 20th position. He's just trying to stay out of trouble. He just wants to bide his time. I guarantee you we will see that car out front if he manages to stay out of trouble.
Oh, indeed. Unfortunately, last week was not his night. I mean, not his night, I guess, and week either. But yeah, he ended up getting taken out and had to call it a night very early on. But back here tonight, determined, very determined, and qualified here in the 13th place spot. But like you said, deciding to start in dead last in the 20th place spot. And so far, his next victim is 77 of Ken Caruthers, who's a long ways ahead of him, and himself, James O'Brien, being shown 17.2 seconds behind the leader, his teammate Paul D. Johnson. But going back up front so far, looks like Johnson is having some pressure by the 51 of Yankins.
Yeah, and Paul is definitely he's out there. He's got about a tenth of a second lead over Joseph, but I would imagine we're going to start to see that go down. I talked with Paul earlier, and he said they're having trouble with that loose condition, but you know, maybe they got something sorted out in practice. But we're definitely we'll be finding out here pretty quick.
Oh, indeed. And here, so far, we have a driver who has some damage on the right rear already. It's a Gen X driver, Christian Swenson. And so far, we have 81 of Seth going against his teammate, the 8 of Stephen Aguiar. They are side by side on the front stretch. Before turn 1, who's going to give? Looks like Seth drives it in hard. 8 of Aguiar backs off and lets him by without a fight for now. Off the exit of turn 1, looks like a slingshot by the 8 of Aguiar. Is he gonna ride? Yes, he will. Actually, bump drafting. That's the good thing about having such amazing straight stretches. The bumped draft does really take effect, basically, like super speedway, as you can imagine, Daytona or Talladega. And so far, 8 of Stephen Aguiar seems to be getting a good run entering the turns. And off the exit of turn number 3, though, looks like his run does die a little bit against the 81 of Seth Su. Very unofficially, that bumps Stephen Aguiar down to 4th place and Seth Su very up to 3rd. And for the back in the pack, we have 88 of Daniel Smode, wishing a battle between the 2 drivers, 22 of Regan and the 5 of Whitaker.
We're looking at about 6 laps into this run so far, and Paul Johnson has increased his lead by a half second. He's picking them up and putting them down out there, and it's going to be really, really curious to watch what happens here when we get into that 15 to 20 lap window, if we're able to stay 3 wide back there. You got the 22 and Stephen Aguilera and Kristen Swenson on the outside. 3 wide racing, unbelievable through turn 2. That is crazy.
The 2 that were able to make it out of that ahead include the 15 of Christian Swenson and 22 of Richard Regan Jr., who are still drag racing as we speak with 7 laps in. Regan drives it in on the entering turn number 1 on the inside line and gets around his teammate Swenson. Off the exit of turn number 1, Swenson's run does die as he gets approached by the 5 of Whitaker.
Yeah, there is definitely a heck of a battle going on between Reagan Jr. there and Kristen Swenson and the number 5, and then Stephen in the number 8. These guys showed up to race tonight.
Oh yes, they did. Last week's dominating team was the GRG Racing Team, and tonight, so far, it seems to be the 14 of Johnson, the Road Trip Racing Team. But then the battles are going on among teammates, the Gen X Racing Team going against each other. And ladies and gentlemen, a special treat. We have a tribute. We'll actually get some more information from the drivers here once we get some interviews going. It's with the 88 of Daniel Smallwood and also the 23 of Craig Hawkins, the 2 Old Schools Motorsports drivers. They have an amazing paint scheme on both machines. So we'll be hearing from them here before too long. So please stay tuned for that.
Well, Paul D. Johnson just continues to stretch that lead out. We're looking at a 1.5 seconds he's pulled out in front with 8 laps on the tires. So I talked to him earlier. He wasn't very confident. He said he didn't get a lot of practice in this week. But I'll tell you what, I think he's lying to us because he showed up to drive tonight.
Oh, indeed he did. And also an interesting fact, Johnny. James O'Brien, last time we checked on him, he was 15 seconds behind the leader, Paul D. Johnson, but somehow able to gain 2 seconds, or in this case, shave 2 seconds off the lead of Paul Johnson, and is now only 15 seconds behind Johnson, and once again, without no draft assistance.
Yeah, and we'll mention that Paul D. Johnson and James O'Brien are teammates, so coming out of the same garage, chances are the setups are very similar. So, you know, I don't know what James is doing back there. Maybe he knows something we don't. But I know the tires, the guys I talked to, they said the tires were doing a lot better at Pocono. And I don't have any inside information to the creators of the sim or the programming behind it. But I'm going to guess, and other drivers were guessing this as well, that because of these long straightaways, it's really cooling the tires down. And the guys are getting a little bit, the fall off here just hasn't been as great as we've seen at other tracks like Charlotte and even like Lucas Oil Raceway there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, indeed, and you know, with that, that does encourage the drivers to push a lot more, and that also gives us a lot more side-by-side racing. And here, as we speak, we had some side-by-side in the back of the pack between 79 of Josh Witherspoon and the 1-0 of Corey M. Smith, and so far, bumped draft action taking place as we speak between the two drivers. Actually, looks like this lap, Corey Smith was able to get around Josh Witherspoon, so that's going to bump Corey Smith up to 14th and Witherspoon down to the 15th place position. At this point, these drivers most likely finding it more beneficial to work together for a common good. In this case, trying to catch up to their next victims, their next opponents, so they can be able to be in a better standing if those green flag pit stops were to kick in.
Absolutely, and Paul Johnson just continues to increase that lead. He's almost 2 seconds, a little better than 2 seconds out in front of these guys. We're 11 laps into this run, so we're getting close to that window. So it's going to be very interesting to see how these cars change over the next 4 to 5 laps.
Absolutely, and so far here, yep, Youngkins 2.1 seconds behind Paul Johnson. And indeed, that lead getting nothing but bigger with every single turn, every single lap. This is bad news for the rest of the field. So here, in this case, 4 more laps. We should expect to see some looseness taking place because I'm monitoring the 14 of Johnson. And he seems to be quite he seems to be very stable.
Looks good. He looks really good. And it's, you know, Paul's a great guy. He drives his butt off every week, so maybe tonight's his night.
Indeed, yeah. Last week we saw him get involved in a very bad wreck, and still somehow was able to pull off a third place finish with a beat up machine. So he is definitely unstoppable and a very determined driver, and that does take him a very, very long way week after week. And so far for the back in the pack, 00 Kyle Souza going against the 15 of Christian Swenson side by side. Swenson on the outside, he drives it in hard, entering turn number 1, and Souza is forced to let off a little bit, and that gives Swenson a good slingshot, a good push off turn number 1. At the same time, Souza now being challenged by 23 of Craig Hawkins, Old Schools Motorsports driver.
I was talking to the drivers earlier. Right now we're seeing Craig take him in turn 2. Oh, Craig pushes up a little bit in the hill, has to get out of the throttle and loses a little momentum there.
Oh, so far here, that just lets Craig Hawkins back it down just a little bit. But he will recharge, he will regenerate, he will go at it again. But this time, he will make it work. Looking at the gap between the top 2 drivers, Johnny, it's gone down from 2.2 seconds to 1.3.
And it's going down fast. And like you said, we're looking at 14. So clearly we're seeing exactly what these drivers have been talking about.
Oh, man. Oh, how much longer can Paul Johnson maintain that race lead before he gets caught by Joseph Youngkins and the pack behind him, the pack of Hungry Lions, Richard Regan Jr., Kevin Whitaker, Stephen Aguiar, Seth Silverio, Christian Swenson, Kyle Souza, and Craig Hawkins. And here so far looks like the battles have kind of settled down a little bit among the Gen X racing team, racing amongst themselves. But for the back in the pack, we have the 99 of Brandon Walter. Brandon Walter here with the Road Trip Racing team behind Josh Bachman, GRG. They are 11th and 12th place here, single file so far. Oh, off the exit of turn number 1. Looks like Brandon Walter almost actually spun out, but he was able to save it. So 15 laps in, and Brandon already very loose.
Yes, and going back a couple of laps back there, Paul Johnson was coming out of turn 3, and he definitely did the shimmy and the shake, and he's definitely starting to feel the looseness. And his lead has been cut now to about 0.8 of a second. Joseph just seems to be coming after him really fast and hard.
Oh, indeed. And also this time, let's focus on the 9 of James O'Brien as well and see exactly how his machine is handling in comparison to his teammates, Brandon Walter and Paul D. Johnson. And so far, James O'Brien is getting some serious draft assistance from 79 of Josh Witherspoon, GRG driver. And here, entering turn number 1, looks like he's going to get a good run against Josh Witherspoon. Yes, he does. But not enough to make it work just yet. He was looking to the inside. He's looking to the inside to get a run.
Absolutely, and we're just sitting here watching Joseph. He is stalking that 14 car, and he is stalking him fast.
Oh, a cluster is being formed here in the back of the pack. Johnny here among James O'Brien, Josh Witherspoon, Michael Knight, and now 96 of Jeffrey Ford. Looks like some 3-wide action. They both get around the 79 of Josh Witherspoon. And Witherspoon seems to have lost about 4 spots, 3 spots. Now the caution flies this time around on lap 17. Gonna see what happened.
I believe that was the number 2 car. Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
Well, as we go back to the replay, it's actually going to be the 51 of Joseph Youngkins. We're going to rewind it here. Take a look. Coming in through turn 1, that back end touched the apron. The back end just kicked out, got loose, and into the inside wall he went. That is actually going to bring out our first caution of the night.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's one guy right now that's very happy about that, and that's Paul Johnson. Paul's got a fast race car. If I was Paul's crew chief right now, I would bring that car in. I would not make one change, because what happens with these tracks is the rubber gets laid down, the cars get tighter over the run. Paul just doesn't need to touch that race car. Give him 4 new tires and send the man on his way.
Oh, indeed, and something tells me he might end up doing just that. But yeah, that was very unfortunate for 51 of Joseph Youngkins. I'm sure he got a little bit too excited because he was catching Paul at a very fast rate. And I'm actually glad and not surprised that Joseph was able to control that machine while he was doing some serious 360s and was able to minimize the damage the best that he possibly could. So he just has a little bit of a dent in the right rear, but the machine lives to fight for the rest of the race. But here we have Paul D. Johnson most likely going to be going down pit road here this time around. Second place driver Richard Regan, Kevin Whitaker third, Stephen Aguiar fourth, and Seth Silverio rounding up the top 5.
Hopefully after these round of pit stops here, we can get a word with Paul, because I definitely got a couple of questions for him here for our viewers. This is a 55-mile-an-hour pit road speed limit. All these drivers are thinking one thing right now. Do not overshoot your pits at a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. It is so easy to overshoot your pits.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to get out of line, when you have someone that close to your rear, trying to avoid getting hit. But here looks like Richard Regan finds his pit stop, and so does Paul Johnson, going in way too hot, but he slams on the brakes. He stops in time. Oh no, the 8 of Aguiar does miss his pit stop and had to back up. And I do believe a driver missed his pit stop, and that was 79 of Josh Witherspoon, and just did a drive-through. But going back to Paul Johnson was able to get off pit road, I guess in this case second, since Witherspoon did a drive-through. And right behind Paul Johnson we have Kevin Whitaker, Richard Regan Jr., Steven Aguiar, and Christian Swenson.
Well, Paul Johnson definitely had a great pit stop, 14.1 seconds. The other guy that had a great stop was Brandon Walter, 13.8. So see where I'm not sure where Brandon was running when we came in, but see where that helped him out.
Oh, and Johnny, were you wanting to speak with the 14 of Johnson?
Absolutely, if we can get a chance.
He's all yours.
Mr. Paul Johnson, you got me?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Well, I talked to you earlier before the start of this race, and you kind of didn't seem like you were very confident. You're like, it didn't get much time. I officially want to call BS on that, son. I think you're sandbagging us tonight.
Yeah, I mean, not really. So you saw I was getting loose there, and they were reeling me back in. I think given had we gone a green flag run, it'd have been a lot different. But it was starting to get loose. But seeing the second place guy spin out too, it was loose for everyone. So I started to back it down there when I got out to 2 seconds to try to keep tires under the car, and it was. Don't get me wrong, it was really, really, really loose. I was having to play like there was an eggshell under the gas pedal through all the turns. So I think it's a matter of those guys laying back. They weren't that much slower. I think they were laying back for a long run. We'll see though. It's hard to get back 4 seconds unless I make a big mistake. So I don't. But with as loose as these cars are, there's a very good chance I make that mistake.
Well, I was telling these guys earlier, normally, as the track rubbers up, it gets tighter. So as normally as a driver, I would come in and I'd take a couple of rounds of wedge out each time the more the rubber got laid down on that track. But I was telling right now, if I had your situation, I would not have touched that race car. Did you make any changes?
Actually, it did make a little change. Basically, not going to go into too much detail, but made a change to tighten her up. Try to keep it a little bit tighter in the long run, because I never fought a tight car, and being that I can deal with a little bit of tightness and give up a little on the earlier in the run for some late run speed. So I actually did try to tighten up just a touch, because I never got tight that whole run. So I'm gonna see how that plays, and yeah, you are right. The track tightens up, so that comes into play. It wasn't much of a change, but just trying to get her to stay neutral longer without getting real loose.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, I appreciate you taking the time to get with us here and give us a little insight to what's going on, and best of luck to you, buddy.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the broadcast. Now we got to figure out our new pitch strategy.
Well, the lights are off on the pace car, so we're going to green next time around.
Yep, and that was Paul D. Johnson, road trip racing driver, and had one of the most dominant drivers during that first green flag run. And so far he will be assisted by the 22 of Richard Regan Jr. on the inside lane. 5, Kevin Whitaker leading the outside with the help of Steven Aguiar. So Paul D. Johnson, road trip racing driver, and followed by 4 Gen X racing machines behind him. This might not be a good thing, but with the way the green flag had gone during the first run, Paul Johnson was able to increase his lead a lot. So I'm sure he might be able to do that again, given the chance under the next upcoming green flag run. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Hang on to your seats. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Enjoy the show.
I'm on board right now. I'm looking at the back of Joseph Eukins. He's currently in 19th position. He's got some rear end damage, right rear quarter panel damage. He had a 19-second pit stop, so I'm not sure that he got all of the damage worked out of that car that he might be able to. But front end of the car, well, we've got some damage on the right quarter panel, but front end aerodynamic, he looks pretty good. Be interesting to see if he can get that car back out to the front.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, he is a very, very fast driver. And in tonight's race, too, he was before that damage. But yeah, indeed, hopefully he's able to keep up with everybody else as we exit turn number 4 this time around. Going green for the second time. The pace car dips up in 1-4. Hoff Johnson finds the pedal. He gets a great lead against 5 of Kevin Whitaker, Richard Regan Jr., and Stephen Aguiar. They all go back single file, first through 4th place, respectively. And Craig Hawkins was trying to look to the inside of 8 of Aguiar, but Aguiar did shut that door and forcing 23 of Hawkins to back it down. Green flag racing.
And just like we saw before, Paul D. Johnson, he is just slowly stretching that lead. He's almost out to a second lead already with only 1 lap.
Yep, and off the exit of turn number 2, Kevin Whitaker is being charged and challenged by the 22 of Richard Regan Jr. So far, they seem to just be going single file and working together with that strong draft to try and catch up to the vulnerable driver. The vulnerable driver in terms of him being the only one from a different team so far in the lead. And yes, the draft is working against Paul Johnson at a fast rate.
Last week's winner, Ian Lane, he's running currently in the top 10 and hoping to repeat what he did last week.
Yep, that's Skittles, a Toyota Camry so far, watching a battle among, well, he's got 4 drivers in front of him. We have Corey Smith, Kyle Souza, Brandon Walter, and the 15 of Christian Swenson. Oh, man, Walter does drift up and lets off the gas to avoid causing trouble. And that does cause 1-5 of Swenson to get ahead of him, and so does the 00 of Kyle Souza. And ladies and gentlemen, we were going to get an interview in with Daniel Smallwood with the Old Schools Motorsports team to talk about his paint scheme. But during the last caution, unfortunately, he was not in the server. He had lost connection, but he is back now. So if we have another caution, we will shoot to get an interview with him.
Well, the number 23 there, Craig Hawkins, he is definitely hanging with this lead pack. I talked to him earlier. Craig's also running that special paint scheme, and viewers, stick around. We'll tell you that heart-wrenching story a little down the road.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, Craig Hawkins as well. Yeah, one of the most amazing drivers here to the PRL. And so far, he's trying, just buying his time, not really pushing much. I've noticed here he has been struggling in the long run ever since we went to the Open Setup Series here with PRL, but he seems to be getting the hang of it.
I think old Paul is just trying to pace that car a little bit better this time, thinking maybe he's thinking or run it a little slower, or either you second through 4th place cars have decided that hey, we can hang with this guy.
Yeah, or maybe he ended up messing up, making that change on pit road. Oh, and now the 5 of Whitaker to the inside of Paul Johnson. That was a good run he got on him. It's like he was sitting still. And so far, 5 of Whitaker makes it stick nice and strong on the inside. Almost exchange some paint, but no harm done. A drag race up front. New race leader?
Oh, they're battling it out. But I'll tell you what, if I'm one of those top 10 cars right now, I love seeing these leaders side by side like that, because they're going to set the pace a little more. And hopefully bunts well. The number 5, he just gets him in turn.
Oh!
Oh, and a spin by the 22. He gets into Paul Johnson.
Oh, the caution flies, but Paul's machine lives to fight for the rest of the race. And same with Richard Regan Jr. Let's back up on Paul. See what happened?
Well, as we go here to the replay, we just see the contact between Paul D. Johnson and it looked like the 22 of Richard Regan. And Paul goes around. Not sure if anybody else makes contact with him. No other contact. Everybody's able to get around him. So, but I think we've seen some other cars spinning here. So let's see. Yep, I don't think I can catch it, but heartbreak right there for the 14 of Paul D. Johnson, but still got a long race to go.
Yeah, it's definitely like there was no contact. The contact was on the rear of the car, so it's not going to mess with Paul aerodynamic wise too much. And you know, he just got very fortunate there. I'm sure Richard Reagan Jr. hates that happened. It definitely, you know, didn't look intentional. And kudos to the guys avoiding that accident. I mean, they just really squeezed. Talking about threading the needle.
Oh, indeed, yeah, great awareness by every single driver, minimizing that damage. And the good thing about this, like you said, Paul Johnson will be just as fast as he was in the beginning of the race. So that's a very good thing. And here before too long, so at this point, looks like the drivers have run, yeah, they have 9 laps on their tires and tanks. So something tells me they should be all going down pit road this time around.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why you would not want to pit right here. I mean, we're looking at 50 laps to go. You're gonna need another stop anyway. So, if I'm driving right now, I'm coming in and getting me 4 new ones.
Absolutely, and also we have a lucky dog this time around. We have 88 of Daniel Smallwood back from the dead. He actually unfortunately lost connection and is 9 laps down. Well, now down to 8 laps down this time around. So hopefully Smallwood is able to get the most of his laps back, if not maybe all of his laps back before the race ends. So we're gonna try and get a word in with him before we go green. So let's give him a chance to pit in first. Yeah, but up front here, everybody did pit in except for the 98 of Ian Lane, GRG driver and last week's first-time winner, getting himself locked into the chase via win. So congrats to Ian Lane once again and leading a lap to get the bonus point.
Well, Paul D. Johnson had a 13.9 pit stop, and so that's telling me he probably didn't have any damage on that car. So hopefully he'll be able to navigate that machine back up to the front again.
Yeah, right now he's being shown in the 19th place position behind the 97 of Josh Buckman. And this might not be a bad thing after all, Johnny, because it gets him closer to his teammate, at least to one of his teammates. That's the 9 of O'Brien.
Yeah, the two of them could definitely hook up and come through this field. I think we'll see Paul back. And I'll tell you another thing. I don't think if I were in this field and I saw Paul in my rearview mirror, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to hold him up because I'm sure he's a little on edge after being spun like that.
Oh, indeed. But here this time it gives us some time to get a race interview in as promised with the 88 of Daniel Smallwood, Old Schools Motorsports driver. He is heading down pit road as we speak. Let's give him a few seconds before we get into it.
I also noticed the 98 of Ian Lane come back down pit road too, so he surrendered his lead. I don't know what's going on there. He must have not liked something that he didn't change about the car or didn't get a chance to change. But he'll be going to the back of the field. Be interesting to see how he comes through the field.
And an interesting thing too, he gives the race lead to his teammate, one of his teammates, the 64 of Michael Knight, and who he'll have 8 laps more on his tires compared to the whole entire field. This might not be a good thing, might not be a bad thing, but we're gonna find out exactly how it affects his performance. But let's go to the 88 of Daniel Smallwood for an interview. Ladies and gentlemen, up here in the booth with us is Old School's Motorsports driver Daniel Smallwood. Gotta go up there, Daniel.
What's up, man?
How you doing tonight?
All right. I guess we dropped out earlier, so not having the best night. We had a good car, just need the laps back.
Yeah, we noticed, yeah, you dropped back, but that was actually good. I mean, you were able to get your lap back, is what I'm trying to say. So you got 1 lap back, and hopefully you'll be able to get most of your laps back, maybe all of your laps back before the race ends. But Danny, man, you're running an amazing paint scheme. It's a well-dressed machine. Same with your teammate, Craig Hawkins. Want to talk about your paint scheme a little bit?
Yes, the paint scheme is in honor of Jerry Roy, my uncle. He was a great man. We thought we had dementia, but 3 years ago, and we don't know what he actually had, and it just kind of took over his body. He caught the ammonia, and he passed away, and we had his funeral yesterday, and he means a lot to me, and so it's an honor to run his paint scheme, and have Craig run it too.
Oh, Daniel, sorry to hear about sorry for your loss, brother, and it's an amazing thing you're doing. That machine is very, very well dressed. And ladies and gentlemen, please pass our thoughts and prayers to the Smallwood family and the family of everybody who were, all the people who were close to his uncle and Smallwood. Once again, man, very sorry about your loss, but stay strong, brother. It's gonna all be okay.
Thank you, buddy. We've been just taking it one day at a time.
That's all you can do, brother. Well, Smallwood, man, we look forward to you getting all your laps back here before too long. We know you're a fast driver. You have one of the fastest machines out there with your teammate, Craig Hawkins. Make us proud.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
That was 88 of Daniel Smallwood, Old School's Motorsports driver. Starting here right behind the 1-4 of Paul D. Johnson. And we are now back 1 to green, being led by Kyle Souza with the help of the 8 of Steven Aguiar. Outside lane being led by Richard Regan Jr. with the help of the 5 of Kevin Whitaker. We are going green. And looking in the chat, we have a new viewer. Well, he used to be a driver, one of the aliens here with the PRL in the past, Cody Knapmiller. Welcome back, Cody Knapmiller of the Gen X Racing team. It's good to see you back, man. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to speak with Cody a little bit this week, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we're back to green flag racing, and Kyle says like he backed up the field a little bit, but he maybe had a little tire spin there, but he takes to the inside of number 22 of Reagan Jr., and he leads him down the front straight.
Yep, 8 of Aguiar did give him a lap tap to get him going. And so far here, Souza does lose the race lead to the 22 of Richard Regan. Oh, Souza is loose. He's getting sideways. He hangs on to it. Some 3 wide going on in the back of the pack. Almost 4 wide among Steven Aguiar, Kevin Whitaker, 51 of Youngkins, and 23 of Hawkins. But they back it down. Double wide.
Oh, and there's some battling going on in the back, too, as Paul D. Johnson makes his move back up towards the front. He's moved into 14th position behind Ken Carruthers.
Oh, yep, a big cluster has been formed. 14 of Johnson is now all over the rear of 15 of Christian Swenson. Off the exit of turn number 3, Swenson does fall short, and Johnson benefits from that greatly. 3 wide ahead of them. It's going to be among Brennan Walter, Seth Silverio, and the 10 of Corey Smith, but end up going back double wide, entering turn 1.
Yeah, that was a smart move on their part.
Yeah, 3 wide does really require a lot of concentration. At the same time, a lot of luck is needed. Well, especially a track like this, being that these machines do end up pushing tight when they carry that much speed. But looks like here so far no harm done. 99 of Walter though does end up losing time against Corey Smith and Seth Silverio. And Seth has been on the move since the drop of the green flag, and now his next victim is the nine of James O'Brien.
Well, Paul D. Johnson's moved up into 11th position, so I think he's going to get back up there in the hunt.
Oh, indeed. And now, yeah, Paul Johnson's next victim is the 99 of Walter, his own teammate. So now we have James O'Brien in 7th place. 99 of Brandon Walter in 10th place, and Paul Johnson in 11th place, all with the Road Trip Racing team. And for the back in the pack, the 96 of Jeffrey Ford. So far, Ford actually seems to have been losing spots left and right, but now seems to have settled down and just let the 88 of Daniel Smallwood by without a fight, because Smallwood here, no harm done. He is 8 laps down, so no harm to Jeffrey. Oh, and Josh Bachman in 14th place, going at it with his teammate, 98 of Ian Lane, all with the GRG Racing team, and 77 of Ken Carruthers, not Carruthers, but Carruthers, so far in the 17th place. But I haven't spoken much of Ken, if any, tonight, but he has been keeping a low profile, and so far just pretty much buying his time.
Yeah, Ken is definitely one of the veterans here. He just... he's very patient. You rarely see him getting into trouble with his car, and one of my favorite guys to race with. Ken is as clean of a racer you can ask for.
Absolutely, and so far here behind the 60 of Colton Lane, he's gonna make a power move on the outside line. He's gonna make it work. Yes, he makes it work off the exit of turn 3 and gets a great run on the straight stretch. And 60 of Lane has no choice but to fall back in line to get the great benefit of the draft from Ken Carruthers. And here Ken Carruthers now has his eyes on the prize, and the prize is 64 of Michael Knight.
Well, the man on the move right now is James O'Brien. He just made small work of the number 23 car, Craig Hawkins, and he's moved into that number 4 position.
Oh man, yeah, he's come a very long way. I was having doubts early on about him starting in dead last and getting up in front of the field, but well, as usual, he has proved me wrong. And his next victim now is Steven Aguiar for the 3rd place position. And a new viewer in the chat, we have Connor Souza. That's Connor Souza in the chat. Welcome to the Online Sim Racing Network there, Connor. Hope you're doing well tonight. Richard is probably going to win. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a very, very fast driver. Here, Richard Regan with a 2/10 of a second lead against Kyle Souza. Oh, Kyle Souza challenging the 22 of Richard Regan, but entering the turn, he backs off and lets Regan maintain it for now. I should admit, Johnny, it's not looking too good for Kyle Souza in terms of the setup. He was loose on the restart, and even until now.
Yeah, but Kyle's another guy I've had a chance to race with, and if there's anybody that knows how to deal with a loose race car, it's Kyle. He can definitely wheel one of these machines.
Absolutely. He's doing an amazing job keeping Richard Regan in sight. And ladies and gentlemen, here with 37 laps in and 44 laps to go. Gonna take our first commercial break of the evening. We'll be right back, so please stay tuned.
Don't let your first date be your last. Visit People Against Distracted Driving at PADD.org.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Online Sim Racing Network. As we continue tonight's adventure, the Established Traffic Control. That's Established Traffic Control, Round 9 of 13, Season 9, Precision Racing League AMS Oil American Iracing Sunday Series, brought to you by AMS Oil. They specialize in synthetic lubricants for vehicles and equipment, and they are the first in synthetics, so check them out at amsoil.com or amsoil.com. And the season also brought to you in part by the Transdo Cup. Transdo Cup, they are giving $75 to the drive with the cleanest record. That's the driver with the cleanest record receives $75 at the end of the season. But the driver has to complete 75% of every race and also must race 16 of the 20 races in the season. And that's Transdo Transport and Logistics. Their website is transdo.ca. That's TRANSDO.ca, and they specialize in flatbed transport services, and that is Transdo Cup. Also, ladies and gentlemen, PRL has a lot to offer. They have a lot of road racing, a lot of oval racing, so check them out, precisionracingleague.com. Well, going back to the race, we are still being led by Richard Regan Jr., Kyle Souza second, James O'Brien third, Stephen Aguiar fourth, and Kevin Whitaker in the fifth place spot.
Yeah, and the man to watch right now is definitely the number 9 machine that BurgerFi. And Sean and I over the break were discussing, is that BurgerFi, Burger FI? But anyway, James picked off Stephen Aguilera. He is working on Kyle Souza right now, and it's interesting to see how if he can get that machine out front.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, he's come a very long way already in tonight's race. He qualified in the 13th place spot, but was in 20th place in the beginning of the race. Pretty much, that was dead last, because only 20 drivers in tonight's race so far. And looks like they're off the exit of turn number 1. He got a good run against Kyle Souza, but not enough to make it stick. And despite Kyle Souza's looseness, he's still been able to stay consistent and fast at the same time, and now being shown about 7/10 of a second. That's 7/10 of a second, actually now 1.2 seconds behind Richard Regan, who is pulling away.
The number 8 of Stephen Aguilera, he's definitely slipping back a little bit there. Maybe.
Oh, and the caution flies this time around on lap 45. Gonna see what happened.
Well, as we go look back, that's actually going to be the 00 Kyle Souza here. Oh, he lost it just out of the turn. Single car spin. He goes all the way down. He does make a little contact with the back end against the inner wall, but only a single car spin. So, This is going to shake it up here with 36 to go.
Oh, indeed. And also this caution caught one driver on pit road for his first green flag pit stop, and that was 98 of Ian Lane. He was just getting into his pit stall when the caution flew, but that was quite unfortunate.
Well, I'll tell you what most likely happened there. James O'Brien in that 9 car was able to get up under Kyle a little bit there on the back end. And when you're able to put your car up under another guy like that, it takes the air off the rear of his car. And that's probably what happened to Mr. Souza there.
Oh, indeed. But yeah, good thing Souza was able to make sure the car did not have too much damage. It protected the front end, which is the most important thing in this case. So that machine lives to fight for the remainder of the race. And now the drivers will all be coming down pit road, because at this point, all the leaders have about 19 laps on their tires and tanks. So yep, pit road, 4 tires, full tanks of gas. And a lot more changes to be made on pit road, I think.
This is going to be a very important pit stop here. We're seeing right now clean air is the place to be. So you want to be out front. We haven't seen a lot of lead changes. We've seen that car that gets out front. He's been able to stay out front. It's just the question is, can these guys figure out how to go beyond a 20-lap run where those tires start getting so worn out and so loose, it's just hard for these guys to hold on.
Yeah, and so far here, the leader up front, Richard Regan, leads everybody down pit road, and they all follow, except for 60 of Cotton Lane. Cotton Lane staying out to lead a lap to get that extra point, and same with Daniel Smallwood. Daniel Smallwood gets the lucky dog and back to 7 laps down from 9 laps down. Just like we said, hopefully he's able to get most of those laps back, or maybe even all his laps back before the race ends.
One thing I'd like to say, especially for those out there watching, if you're new to sim racing, if you notice when all these cars come down pit road, they all stay over to the right. A lot of guys try to drag race down pit road, and it's race etiquette. You stay to the right. When you try to go left, you block the view of the driver behind you, and it's just a courtesy, and it's just kind of one of those. It is a rule here in the PRL that you have to stay right going down pit road. But in the open servers, we see a lot of side-by-side stuff down pit road. Be courteous to your fellow driver. Stay right on pit road.
Indeed. Yeah, as pretty as that side-by-side action on pit road might seem and might look, it actually is the #1 cause of damage caused on pit road and wrecks caused on pit road. Because for example, if we have, let's say, 6 drivers side by side on pit road, well, 6 drivers, I should say, in a group 2, in a row in this case, following each other, so 3 in each lane. That would mean that if, for example, the driver on the outside up front has to pit in, he either has to speed up and get the black flag, or slow down and end up causing the biggest junk known to mankind with the drivers behind him, so he can be able to get into his pit stall. So a lot does go into going side by side on pit road like that.
Absolutely.
And up front here, we have Richard Regan, who was able to get off pit road first. James O'Brien right behind him second. Kevin Whitaker third. Paul D. Johnson fourth. And Stephen Aguiar fifth. But look at that. The caution caught Ian Lane while he was in his pit stall, and he's able to get ahead of the whole entire field. So he will become the new race leader once Caution Lane pits in the next time around. And once we go green, we should be having a 31-lap shootout. That's a 31-lap shootout. And something tells me we still need one more pit stop, most likely a splash and go.
Yeah, I just don't see this thing going beyond 20 laps. It's just these cars are just so hard to handle when those tires get hot, and it's just going to be really impressive if this field of 20 can all of them can go the distance and keep their car up under them.
Absolutely. And also, this gives us time for a race interview. Let's focus on the 96 of Jeffrey Ford. It's been a while. Ladies and gentlemen, who joined up in the booth by 96 of Jeffrey Ford. Get a cup there, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I got you there, Sean. How you doing, buddy?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. A little bit slow tonight, but I'm hanging in there.
Man, we saw you battling heavily amongst the drivers you had there with you. They're a couple of laps back, but how's the machine been handling tonight?
You know, it's kind of tight for me all the way around. I don't know if it's my setup or what it might be, but it feels pretty tight, and it doesn't seem to be loosening up much at all. It's just a little bit tough out here tonight for me.
Oh, 10-4. Sorry to hear about that, Jeffrey. And also, how are you liking the new repaved track?
I'm sorry, Sean. They were talking in race. Could you say that again?
Oh, no problem. I was just asking, how are you liking the new repaved track?
I think you're saying how is the repaved track. The repaved track, you can't dive it in as good as you used to before they paved it.
Oh, copy that. Well, Jeffrey, man, you're doing an amazing job despite you saying that you're not the fastest out there. And what do you think is your best bet? What do you think, basically, how are you handling it? What are you doing to try and counter the tightness?
I've done a few changes going into the pits with a wedge. It has loosened it up a little bit and made it a little bit better. But I think I started out so far behind a lot of these guys' setups that unless we have a late race caution and I do some out of the ordinary things, I'm probably going to end up around where I'm at now.
Well, Jeffrey, we have very, very high expectations of you, and you are an amazing driver, so something tells me we will see you 15 spots higher before the race ends. You're doing an amazing job this far, Jeff. Keep up the good work, and see you in victory lane.
Thank you, Sean.
Well, the lights are off on the pace car. Interesting, Colton Lane has stayed out. He's got 20 laps on those tires, and he's choosing to stay out. I just don't know if that's going to work out for him. I expect to see him dropping back very quick.
Yep, I do not like it either. The pace car dips off and Lane finds the pedal. Actually, he gets tapped by 22 of Richard Regan Jr. And he gets a great boost by him past the 98 of Ian Lane. And Colton Lane, with 15 laps more on his tires compared to the whole entire field, drives it in, entering turn 1. No, he goes up the track and lets everybody by. I should admit, Johnny...
contact.
Oh.
97 in the 15.
As we go back here on the replay, 97 and 15 get into each other here. See if we can see from another angle here. See if what happened here is that we go with the 97. Just 15 looks like, I'm not sure if they came up, but they met in the middle, and fortunately both cars heavily damaged.
Oh man, in the case of Christian Swenson, he got the worst end of that deal. He made head-on contact with the wall at over 128 miles per hour. Oh, I'm surprised. Actually, he did blow the motor. I was going to say I'm surprised he did not blow the motor, but he did blow the motor on that AMS oil Toyota Camry. Oh, man, he'll be on pit road for quite a while. In the case of Josh Bachman as well gets some very, very bad damage as well, and will be on pit road for just as long. But in the case of Josh Bachman, his motor was somehow reserved, did not blow up. So hopefully... that will mean he'll be on pit road a lot less than Christian Swenson. But going back up front, a new race leader already: Richard Regan, Ian Lane second, Kevin Whitaker third, James O'Brien fourth, and Stephen Aguiar in the fifth place spot. And Johnny, this caution is a very good thing for Colton Lane.
Yeah, he's definitely I understand his thoughts on that. You're thinking, well, maybe we'll get a quick caution and I can stay out front and get some positions here. And but what was I was afraid we were going to see when a car does that. Every driver out there, we hate to see a guy do that. He's on the lead and he just bunches the field up. And when you bunch that field up like that, well, trouble's going to happen. And that's what we saw.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, that was very unfortunate once again for all drivers involved in that. Ooh, and as we speak, yep, Josh Bachman on pit road. Same with Christian Swenson. In the case of Christian Swenson, his night might just might be over. But now pit road is quite the busy place. Actually, not really. We have the top 12 drivers staying out, but only a few drivers pitting in. In this case, Cotton Lane, Michael Knight, Ken Carruthers, Seth Silverio, and Joshua Witherspoon all pitting in. But everybody else staying out, and just like that, Daniel Smallwood gets one more lap back, is now down to 6 laps down from 9 laps down. Great job, Smallwood.
And as you said, it looks like there's 12 cars that are going to stay out here on those old tires, and it's only 6 laps on, but I'll tell you what, you got about half the guys on old tires, half the guys on new tires. Looking at about 28 laps to go. This could get interesting.
Yep, indeed. And also something tells me the good thing about this is that once we go back at green flag racing, the drivers will have a chance to take just enough gas to be able to make it the rest of the way. And maybe they might add 2 tires. Actually, in this case, Johnny, with how late we are in the race and with how so little few laps we have left in the race, let's say if the drivers pitted in with maybe 15 laps to go as a driver, and after seeing how these machines have been handling, what do you think is the best way to go? Do you think maybe with 15 laps to go, you take no tires, just gas, or maybe 2 tires?
That's a tough call. We spoke about this last week, and actually I talked to Cody Natmiller in the forum this week a little bit about taking 2 tires. And it's a risky strategy. The cars are just really unpredictable. Some guys do it. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I tell you, it's just something I stay away from. It's either 4 for me, or either I'm going to stay out and do what I can on what I got. For me as a driver, I'll take a predictable race car over a questionable race car any day of the week. I'll take a top 5 instead of throwing a risk to try to win the thing. But that's just how I am as a driver. It just boils down to personality. Everybody's got a different view on these types of strategies.
Absolutely, man. A great insight indeed. Yeah, it just depends on the driver and the situation at the exact same time here. But so far here, 14 of Paul Johnson, who was once in dead last, is now all the way up to 6th place in that road trip RV rental machine, and behind the 8 of Stephen Aguiar. And speaking of Stephen Aguiar, ever since, let's say the last 2 races, actually, we've noticed that Aguiar has changed up his strategy like we have never seen before. He decides to now start up front and stay up front, and not like back in the day when he would start up front or maybe start mid-pack and just end up going to the back of the pack on purpose and charging later on. So I think maybe he's figured something out up front.
Well, I think the one thing he figured out was a season or 2 ago, he switched over to the Gen X team, and that definitely give him a lot of advantage when you can get the opportunity to work with a team like Gen X.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, teamwork does really play a key role, and that has definitely increased Stephen Aguiar's momentum indeed. At the same time, it has encouraged him to stay up front and run with the big dogs as usual. And so far here we have Richard Regan with Gen X, Ian Lane, GRG, Kevin Whitaker, Gen X, James O'Brien, Road Trip Racing, Stephen Aguiar, Gen X, Paul D. Johnson with the Road Trip Racing, Craig Hawkins, Old Schools Motorsports, Brandon Walter, Road Trip Racing, and we have Joseph Youngkins with the Gen X Racing team, and also we have Corey Smith with the Gen X Racing as well. That is first place through 10th place respectively. We are now back 1 to green. One to green with a 26-lap shootout to come. We have Richard Regan with the help of his teammate Kevin Whitaker. Outside lane being led by last week's winner Ian Lane with the help of the 9 of James O'Brien.
We got Paul there in the number 14 looking to see if he can put that machine back out front again. Last few runs he had to come from the back, but a little easier to pick off 3 or 4 cars than it is to pick off 15, 16 cars. So be fun to watch Paul navigate this traffic and see how he works around his teammate there, James O'Brien, as well.
Yeah, indeed. And also at this point, something tells me everybody's driving styles, everybody's racing styles are going to change. And that's also partly because at this point they're used to seeing each other's driving styles here in tonight's race at Pocono Race with a tricky triangle, the established traffic control round 9 of 13, season number 9. So ladies and gentlemen, a lot more side by side to come, a lot more take, a lot less give off turn 3, going green. Pace car off, green flag is out, and the 2 Gen X drivers take off like some rocket ships. Kevin Whitaker and Richard Regan Jr., Stephen Aguiar right behind, but 98 of Ian Lane was caught sleeping and is paying the price, trying to play catch-up. At the same, 3 wide, James O'Brien, Craig Hawkins, 51 of Joseph Youngkins, they end up, pushing out the James O'Brien for the back of the pack to about 7th place from 5th place, and 5-1 of Youngkins going against 98 of Ian Lane as we speak.
That was a great restart. Stephen Aguilar, he really got a good start, and he's struggling to find the speed out there.
Oh, indeed, and so far he gets actually charges on the rear end of the 5 of Whitaker off the exit of turn number 3. He challenges him side by side. He's trying to get the great draft from Kevin Whitaker. But here entering turn number 1, Aguiar just might have the preferred race line. He drives it in hard, and the 5, Whitaker backs it down, and Aguiar now bumped up 2nd place, and that bumps Whitaker down to 3rd.
Well, Steven must have heard me talking about him, and he's like, no, I still got a race car here.
Yep, and he found 5th gear just like that. And ladies and gentlemen, a special viewer in the chat, we have Michelle Makemaster Eisenhower. Welcome back, Michelle. It's good to see you again. Hope you're doing well tonight. Hope you're doing well.
I want to get Michelle in a race car. She might be a sleeper driver out there.
Oh, we've encouraged her a lot to get on iRacing. So, Michelle, you listening? Get on iRacing like yesterday. We need you. We need you.
I'll build her car for her. No, that's one thing. We don't see a lot of women doing iRacing, and I wish we could see more of that. Too many guys around here. This place needs a woman's touch.
That's a very good point, actually. And also in all our years of broadcasting, David Everly and myself, we've actually only had, I personally have only had 1 female driver in one of the other leagues. But other than that, no other female drivers. But you're absolutely right.
The only driver I've ever ran across was Laura Lawson. She used to run around with Dave Cater's team. I think they were Wheelman Incorporated, I believe was the name of their team. And Laura could wheel a car. I don't know how old she is, but I'll tell you what, I battled with that girl in open servers a lot. That gal can drive a race car.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, here before too long. Hopefully, a lot more females get into this. So we have Michelle in the chat now thinking about it. Oh, the caution flies with 58 laps in and 23 laps to go. You gonna see what happened?
Well, that's going to involve the 98 of Ian Lane here. So I take a look. It's going to be the 81 and the 98 here. So let's see what exactly happened to the 51. I think he got into the wall here. Taking a look here. No, it wasn't the 51. Let's go back and see if I can see. But I know it was Ian Lane there. Got into some contact.
Oh, with the 81.
Oh, the 81. Seth Severio coming off the turn. Had to check up because he was headed to the wall. Ian Lane got into the back end of him. Didn't expect the checkup. Ian Lane got the worst end of that one.
Yeah, and as you see there, it was the same thing we had happen last time. The 98 was able to get right behind there of the 81, and you see that car just shimmy a little bit. He stole his air, he stole his rear downforce, and so he got loose, and he started heading towards that wall.
Oh man, and Ian Lane had one of the fastest machines out there representing the GRG racing team. Definitely unfortunate. And or I should say in this case, turn of events for Ian Lane. And also the same with 81 of Seth Silverio. Both very amazing fast drivers, but very unfortunate. But here the good thing about this caution is that if the drivers pit in this caution, they should be able to make it the rest of the way. And now 22 laps left.
Well, looking at the 98 there, yeah, car's messed up pretty good. I think his race is over, but then again, he might do like Paul did last week and put it in top 3.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and also in the status check of both Christian Swenson and Josh Bachman, they are still on pit road as we speak, still getting some of the damage fixed. In this case, Swenson, who had the worst end of that deal, blew his motor on impact. They're trying to resurrect that machine, but hopefully he's able to, get that machine back to life and put down some more laps before the race ends. With now 21 laps left, but the drivers come down pit road. Everybody comes down pit road for their final pit stops of the evening. In this case, I should say their final required pit stops, so they'll be able to make it the rest of the way.
While we're under caution here, I just want to give a shout out to Daniel Smallwood's family. I had talked to him earlier about that, and this uncle that passed away with the brain issue, he was 57 years old. Daniel also told me he was a welder. He built fence, and the main reason I wanted to just give a shout out to his 3 surviving children, Jerry, Justin, and I believe the daughter's name is Leith. If I'm saying that correctly, I hope I am, but our hearts and our prayers just go out to the family for their loss this week.
Yeah, most definitely, brother. And Daniel Smallwood here so far, now being shown 5 laps down. He got 4 laps back this far. Congrats to Daniel Smallwood. He just might be able to get all laps back before the race ends. So fingers crossed for that. And up front here, still being led by Richard Regan. Actually, yeah, scratch that. Joseph Yankins is now ahead. So he should be the new race leader once you cross the start-finish line. So Joseph Yankins, Richard Regan, Steven Aguiar, Kyle Souza, James O'Brien, rounding up the top 5.
Well, with less than 20 laps to go, the cars are going to be pretty stable for these 20 laps. But unfortunately, the instability is going to come from the drivers. They're going to be ready to roll. They're going to be aggressive. We've seen a lot of 3-wide racing here tonight, and I think we're about to see a little more.
Ooh, absolutely. And also, Johnny, we talked about how we're having a discussion about the 2-tire strategy. Well, so far we have 2 drivers on the whole entire field, 2 drivers who did the 2-tire strategy, namely our leader, 51, of Joseph Youngkins, and also 00 of Kyle Souza, all on 2 tires. And we'll be having a 18-lap shootout. So we're going to see what happens.
No dice. 2 tires will not work if this thing goes green.
Yep, I'm having the exact same doubts. Those machines will be very unstable, either too loose or too tight. But here on the restart, so far, Joseph Youngkins is surrounded by his teammates. Well, in second and third place, Richard Regan Jr. with Steven Aguiar. But a rim riding racing driver, Kyle Souza, in 4th place, and James O'Brien Road Trip Racing in 5th place. And usually, Johnny, we've noticed we always have battles between maybe 2 teams. In the past, we saw it had been between Road Trip Racing and Gen X. But last week it was GRG, Gen X, Road Trip, and also Rim Riding Racing. So it seems like the competition is getting nothing but stiffer with every week.
It's definitely gotten better, but I'll tell you what, this is going to be the last week on this current build for these tires. iRacing is releasing a new build next week. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the new tire model 7 that I think everybody's wanting. I'm a driver. I just cannot wait for the new tires to come out. But it looks like we're going to be on the same tire model version 6. But they did make some changes. They're going to try to band-aid this max camber exploit setups that you're hearing about all the time. Maybe if we don't have a lot of laps here, and I bet you action's going to be hot. But I was hoping to maybe kind of talk to our viewers about that high camber setup and what we mean by that. But next week, it's a new ball game. Everything can change. It's a new build. Gotta love it.
Oh man, yep, that's gonna make things interesting for sure. That means, ladies and gentlemen, the drivers will have to adapt, or in this case, I guess, adapt to the new changes here coming up on iRacing. And also for those, we have had a couple of viewers tune in who have never heard of iRacing before. iRacing is an amazing simulation, online sim. So check it out at iRacing.com. That's iRacing.com. And we are now 1 to green, still being led by Joseph Youngkins with the help of Steven Aguiar. Outside lane being led by Richard Regan Jr. with the help of Kyle Souza. We are going green. An 18-lap shootout coming up. Fingers crossed, and hang on to those seats. Hang on tight.
So notice some of these cars, like the car of Paul Johnson, you see his car splitters riding a little high. The 8 cars riding pretty low under caution. So, and there, like I said, I wanted to talk to about that. But one thing you look at is look at the different attitude these cars set at. We're back to green flag racing. The 51 wastes no time getting back to the throttle. James O'Brien's giving Steven Aguilar a little hello in the back end. Say, come on, son, let's get this thing going.
Yeah, but also 51 of Youngkins able to maintain his race lead entering turn. No, his teammate 22 of Regan drives in way hard. Oh, they almost made contact. 51 is sideways. Oh,
and a hard hit.
Gets in the wall.
Oh, followed up by another hard hit of the 81. And Jerry, there's so many cars. Jeffrey Ford takes a hard lick to the retaining wall, inside retaining wall as well.
As we go back to replay, we're going to ride on board with Joseph Youngkins as he just, wow, and then he gets hit. And there's a car flipping. I think that was the 81 of Silvio. Let's see if we can get that on replay here. From Silvio's view here on the restart coming into turn 1. What action, but man, that is going to take out some big names there. We see the action up ahead and Silvio nowhere to go, right into the 51, and he is going barrel rolling down the track. So just really unfortunate there.
And what we're seeing there is 2 tires. It's just not predictable. When I've tried it in practice and whatnot, the car just is so loose on 2 tires. You have really got to to know your stuff if you're going to do 2 tires, or you're going to end up with a loose race car, and that's what we just witnessed.
Oh, indeed, yeah. He tried his best to save it, but he was way too far ahead of the field that he collected most of them, unfortunately. Once a wreck happens up front like that, ladies and gentlemen, it usually collects the most drivers that it possibly can. And in this case, a lot tried to avoid it. In the case of 8 of Steven Aguiar, he actually was able to avoid it, but when he thought he was clear of the spinning Janken's machine, he got clipped in the right rear, which got him loose and sent him leftward into the wall. But definitely unfortunate for every single driver involved, and this does shake things up once again. 64 laps in and 17 laps remaining in tonight's race.
Well, I'll tell you what, that 81 of Seth's, help me out here, Sean. How do we say his last?
Oh, Silverio.
Silverio, Seth Silverio. That 81, I'll tell you what, he just plowed old Joseph. I'm just thinking he just did not know that car was sitting there.
Oh, man. Yeah, he did some serious flips. Flipped in every single direction known to mankind, as I like to put it. And here we have some good news again. 88 of Daniel Smallwood gets one more wave around the pace car, and now back to 4 laps down from 9 laps down, getting 5 laps back. Oh man, that's actually some great success on Smallwood's part.
It is. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You know, real racing, you have engine failures, you have transmission failures, mechanical failures. iRacing, we have internet failures. And it could be something as simple as maybe your kid jumped on the Wi-Fi or something playing one of his games and causes you latency, and next thing you know, you're booted. And it's so unfortunate. It doesn't happen a lot. iRacing does a great job managing the connections, but I'll tell you what, when it happens, it's like, oh, man.
Absolutely, yeah. We've actually had a lot of incidents where some drivers get distracted, or maybe their dog disconnects their wheel, and all of a sudden you just see a machine going taking a 90-degree turn at over 120 miles per hour, or taking out the whole entire field, because the driver loses control of the machine due to their wheel not being plugged in. A lot of different funny scenarios that go on. Well, not funny to those drivers involved, but always funny to watch.
Well, our viewers can't see this, but we're able to see who comes and goes inside the server, spectators and whatnot. And I just happened to see that old Daniel Wilborn snooping around. Wonder if he's considering coming back here to the PRL.
Oh yeah, we actually got a chance to speak with Daniel Wilborn during the last interview of last season number 8, and he did talk about how unfortunately his work schedule was not going to permit him to be back for another season with the PRL, this season at least. So hopefully he's able to get back with us for the next season right here with PRL. Also, ladies and gentlemen, going back to PRL, they have a lot to offer. They race at least 5 nights a week, both road racing and oval racing, so you guys can join any of those series based on experience and preference. In the case of the Sunday night Xfinity series, you have to race your way in because they only take the best of the best drivers. So you have to race your way in. So check them out, precisionracingleague.com. Also on top of that, actually, with PRL, this series, they actually also cap their fields at 36 drivers. So that's 36 drivers maximum, with teams of 4 maximum per team. So a lot of team racing does go on at the exact same time. So once again, precisionracingleague.com.
Yeah, you talked about Daniel with the work schedule, and that's what it is. So I mean, people cannot imagine how much work you put into these cars to come out here and race once a week. And one of the reasons why I'm sitting in the booth now and I'm not out on the track, the work schedule. It's just so hard to find time. And when you work with a team, they expect you to show up and they expect you to work. I mean, put the laps on these cars. And it's just, when you're a spectator and you're just watching from the outside, you just cannot grasp the work that these guys put into these cars, and you can't appreciate the work, but it takes a ton. And you know, there was nothing to spend 60 hours a week working on a setup.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A lot does really go into this. And also speaking of the teamwork, when you talk about how they expect you to be there putting down these laps, you know, the one thing about that is that you have, for example, a team of 4, like you talked about, they have a maximum of 4 drivers per team. That means these drivers all have different driving styles, different racing styles, which means that same setup could react differently for every single driver, or each driver in that team. So the good thing about, you know, working together as a team and putting down those laps individually in that team does really help the setup builder pretty much even the setup out to everybody's comfort level. And here as we speak, we are now back 1 to green. Richard Regan still leading with the help of 9 of James O'Brien. Outside lane being led by Kyle Souza with the help of Kevin Whitaker. We are going green with a 13-lap shootout coming up.
We definitely got the heavy hitters up there. You got Paul in the 14, you got James O'Brien in the 9, you got Richard Reagan Jr. in the 22. Kyle Souza somehow he's hanging tough up there, and you got the number 10 of Corey M. Smith up there. We're about to see a race.
Indeed, and also speaking of Corey Smith, man, he did start in the back of the pack in 16th. Just stayed back there pretty much all race long, but now he has found 5th gear and made his first appearance in the top 10 and the top 5 from 16th to 5th place, gaining 11 spots overall. Great job to Corey M. Smith, exiting turn number 3, going green this time.
Well, Craig Hawkins is back there too in the number 7 spot. He's hoping to show a little something.
Green flag is out, and Regan wastes no time. He finds that pedal and catches everybody off guard. 3 wide already. The 10, Corey Smith, James O'Brien, Kyle Souza 3 wide. James is in the middle. Who's gonna give? Who's gonna take? Let's see.
James was a little slow getting back to the throttle there. If you notice, he took the 10 car all the way down there to the inside retaining wall. He was not going to give up that 2nd spot.
Oh, and Kyle Souza tapped the wall. Holy God, go 3 wide. 14 of Johnson is going to force it 3 wide. He lets off the gas and lets 5 of Whitaker go. Some 3 wide, those 2 taking place. Oh no, contact between Souza and Paul Johnson. And that does push Souza all the way up the track. Souza gets spun out sideways. Big wreck in the back. 8 of Aguiar collected. Kyle Souza still being pushed. Oh man, let's back up on Souza and see what happened.
Well, taking a look here, as you said, there was some contact between him and Paul, and then all of a sudden contact between Souza and I didn't quite see who that was. The 64, Michael Knight. Souza goes around. Unfortunately, Stephen Aguiar nowhere to go and just pushes him down the track. But I'm taking a look at our timer. I don't know if we're going to be able to complete the rest of these laps.
Oh man, yeah, that's very unfortunate for both drivers involved in that, Stephen Aguiar and Kyle Souza. In the case of Aguiar, unfortunately, he has retired for the evening. But yeah, going back to what Dave talked about, we have about 8 minutes left with an estimated 11 laps. Yeah, we might not be able to finish to complete the full 80 laps of tonight's race, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately with the servers, it's hard. These servers have to be predetermined on the amount of time, and Pocono with the caution laps, they're so long. And I believe the first time I stepped in the booth with you guys was here at Pocono, because I got taken out early, and I believe we ended under what we call in the sim world here a rain delay, and it's just the long pace laps.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, those pace laps are quite long. Also, considering that the actual race laps are pretty long themselves, 51 seconds under qualifying and going around for 80 laps and under caution. Well, in this case, 51 seconds. or 52 seconds as well. In this case, when you're pushing about, let's say, 190 to 200 miles per hour compared to pace speed 75 miles per hour, that's going to be well over a minute and 40 seconds. So yeah, that does really add up. But 88 of Daniel Smallwood gets one more lap back and is now 4 laps down. Actually, scratch that. He should be 3 laps down. Yeah, 3 laps down. From 9 laps down, has been able to get 6 laps back in tonight's race.
Well, I'll tell you that Amsoil Machine 22 of Richard Reagan Jr., he got the pit stop when he needed it. He had a 13.6 second pit stop, and he remains our leader.
Oh yeah, and once we go green, Johnny, the gloves are going to be off, which means a 0% give and 110% take. Something tells me we might see a little bit of debris by the end of the race.
Yeah, I don't see this one ending very well. If I'm Richard Reagan Jr. right now, I'm really happy where I'm at because this thing that these folks about to get buck wild up in here.
Absolutely. It's going to come down to being at the right place at the right time. And here in this case, yep, Regan being in the best spot, because at this point, just keep in mind, the leader does control the start. And like you saw during the last restart, he had a great jump against the rest of the field. And looking at the stats of Richard Regan, he has had 1 win already here in this season with 4 top 5s and 1 pole position. So tonight is trying to go for his 2nd win and his 5th top 5. And nothing might stop him from that. And here as we speak, 71 laps in with an estimated 7 laps to go with 4 minutes and 50 seconds left.
Definitely. We go back to that last incident. They were 3 wide racing. Kyle Souza, he was forced way up in the top of the lane. He was out of the groove, that dark section of track where you see the rubber laid down, and all the trash collects, all the marbles collect up top. So he had to really check up to make it through that tunnel turn, because I can tell you that's the tightest turn on the track, and you run out of room quick up there. And it was just very, very unfortunate that the 64 Michael Knight, he just didn't see it happening. He just had no place to go.
Absolutely, and also in the case of Kyle Souza, his machine is still alive, surprisingly, and as we speak, is currently in the 12th place spot. But you know, the Mobile One machine has seen better days. That Ford Mustang, it is beat up in every single way you can possibly imagine, but he is still determined to bring this thing to the checkered flag. And as we speak, I'm gonna check our time. We have 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. So we just might end up having a 1-lap shootout to the very end. And at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we have only 12 drivers on the lead lap. And tonight we've lost Steven Aguiar, Joseph Youngkins, Seth Silverio, Jeffrey Ford. Yeah, we've lost these 4 drivers, unfortunately. But we look forward to having them back next week at Michigan.
Michigan always provides us with good racing. One of my favorite tracks to go to. Lots of racing room, lots of speed. It's a flatter track. A lot of guys don't like the flat track. I always enjoyed the flat track.
Well, especially when it's that bumpy.
I've always seemed to manage to do really well on the flat tracks. I know a lot of times the higher the banks, the more trouble I have.
Oh, because I figured, you know, in this case, the banking does help you carry a lot more speed through those turns. But actually, in this case, you preferring those flatter tracks, something tells me it's because you feel you have more control, because it leaves the driving all up to you.
I do like that. I like when a track becomes what we call a driver's track, where you got to really modulate that throttle. I've always enjoyed the flatter tracks.
Absolutely. We are now back 1 to green, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, 2 minutes left, so which means we'll be having an estimated 2-lap shootout. No, 2 3-lap shootout but the simulation here is my app is estimating 4 laps. Once we go green flag racing, our lineup includes Richard Regan Jr. with the help of Kevin Whitaker, James O'Brien on the outside with the help of Corey Smith. So James O'Brien, road trip racing driver, surrounded by a lot of Gen X racing drivers, followed by Craig Hawkins with Old Schools Motorsports, and Paul Johnson in the 6th place spot with Road Trip Racing Team, and his teammate right behind him, Brandon Walter.
You know, and I know old James O'Brien, he is just hating that this thing is going to finish like this. He really, you know, he needs the time. He needs to run, and I just don't think he's got the car. I don't think anybody here has got the car to get out in front of Richard Regan Jr.
Pace car is off. Oh, Richard finds the pedal before the green flag flies, and so does his teammate behind, Kevin Whitaker. But James O'Brien was caught off guard and trying to play catch-up as we speak on the outside of Craig Hawkins with the help of a push from the 10 of Corey M. Smith. Entering turn 1, though, James drives it in hard. He goes to the inside of 5 of Whitaker on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, you talked about James having trouble in that restart. That number 2 spot on these if you're a single monitor driver, it is so hard to get the restarts timed.
Oh, and James, does an amazing job of getting ahead of Kevin Whitaker and taking the second place spot back, which was rightfully his to begin with. But now his next victim is the race leader, Richard Regan Jr.
Well, I can guarantee you O'Brien is up on the wheel. He is driving that thing for all it's worth. And this is just a matter of time here. Here calls Paul Johnson looking to the inside.
Yep, Paul gets around 23 of Craig Hawkins, and that bumps Paul up to 4th place. And ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 laps to go. Next flag is the white flag. Next lap is the white flag.
Well, Richard Regan Jr. has got a whole lot of James O'Brien in his rearview mirror. James got him a little loose there. Paul Johnson into the wall.
Oh, yeah, Paul loses all his speed and momentum, but going back to James O'Brien. James goes way too wide, entering turn number 3. The 5, Whitaker gets into him, they make contact.
Oh,
they save it?
They save it.
Yep, still green flag racing, and James gets a boost from his teammate, 99 of Walter. White flag is out. Richard Regan with the 3/10 of a second lead against his teammate, Kevin Whitaker. Oh, man.
James O'Brien, he just tucked in behind that 22. He drove in too hard. The 22 took his air off the front of his car, and he pushed way up the hill.
And here, as we speak, Richard Regan Jr. coming up to turn number 2 for the final time in tonight's race. Gonna most likely bring this thing home and challenged. Actually, 9 of Ken. Oh, James O'Brien gets into the 5 of Whitaker. They're spinning out. Oh, they both save it, though. Exiting turn number 3, though, Richard Regan brings this thing home and challenged for his 2nd win of the season. Kevin Whitaker 2nd, Craig Hawkins 3rd, James O'Brien 4th, and Paul Johnson in the 5th place position. Well, top 3 interviews coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Regan Jr., Kevin Whitaker, and Craig Hawkins. So please stay tuned. Well, I do believe that Johnny was able to get a hold of tonight's race winner, Richard Regan Jr.
Richard, you got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Oh man, you played it right. You knew we were under the gun there with the virtual rain delay. What was going through your mind?
Just hang in there and hopefully come out clean. I knew James was quicker than me, but I guess this is payback from IRP because he got me off of strategy from cautions and stuff like that. So I wasn't going to let him take this one away from me.
Absolutely. I think you made the right call there. When did you start feeling the looseness of the car?
It didn't really get loose for me. I was running a different setup than my rest of my teammates were because I just didn't like how it felt in practice. And this setup took about 2 to 3 laps to come in, and then I could really be consistent. And then 10 laps after that, I could start pulling everybody. So I knew I didn't have the short run speed, but at the end I held on.
Yes, you did. You did excellent out there. What's your thoughts going into Michigan? I mean, you got 2 wins this season behind you. We're going to see you up there in the front again at Michigan?
That's the plan. I mean, I don't have much seat time at Michigan. I only have 2 races there ever. So I'll be putting in a lot of work this week with the boys, and we'll be back at them next week.
Well, I'll tell you what, you did your team proud. You got our primary sponsor there, Amsoil, on your quarter panel, and it was a lot of fun to watch you do your thing tonight, brother. And any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Amsoil for coming on board with us, sponsoring the series and sponsoring Gen X Racing. Everybody at Gen X Racing, like I say every time I get interviewed, they put in so much work. I wouldn't be as quick as I am without them. You guys for broadcasting and just everybody in the league.
Well, thank you, Richard, and you definitely did Gen X proud tonight. And we'll go over here to Sean. I believe he's got our second place driver, Kevin Whitaker.
Yep, we are joined up in the booth by a fellow Gen X driver, Kevin Whitaker. Gotta come up there, Kevin. Kevin Whitaker, you gotta come up there, buddy. Oh, unfortunately, we're having some difficulties getting a word in with Kevin Whitaker. We're gonna move on to our third place finisher, Old Schools Motorsports driver, Craig Hawkins. Gotta come up there, Craig.
Yeah, I got you, Sean.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. I gave my heart out.
Yes, you did, Craig. Ever since the drop of the green flag, we saw you in the beginning. You're just pretty much taking your time, just buying your time. And during the, I believe that was the second green flag run, we noticed you ended up just backing it down. Was it because you were trying to save tires, or maybe the track wasn't the best?
But that was actually me and Daniel's plan to just drop back. Well, Daniel was going to the front, and I just thought that, this is Pocono, this is the tricky triangle, so, I mean, this track eats tires, so I just, dropped it back, just saved my stuff, and I just couldn't do anything at the first half of the race because my car, it just did not like Pocono.
Oh, 10-4. And also, Craig, how were you able to manage the machine? Basically, were there any changes that you made on pit road that you found to have helped?
Yeah, I made a big old swing on the left wheel spring offset and the right wheel, and that loosened it up a ton. But Daniel actually gave me some brake bias tips to push the brake to the back of the car to make it loose on exit, and that helped a ton. But I just don't know how I got P3 because my car, it just didn't feel like a top 5 car. But I mean, I'm glad I bought it home P3.
Well, Craig, your car might not have been a top 5 car, but you are a top 5 driver, and great success on your part tonight. And also in the points, Craig, you are looking amazing in points. You were 3rd place in points starting tonight's race, and looking at your stats right now, you've had 2 top 5s and 1 pole position. And in this case now, that's going to give you 3 top 5s. And how's the season going so far?
It's going awesome. Me and Daniel, we made some really good setups for these tracks, and sometimes we don't, got the best set, but we work together, and if it wasn't for Daniel, Sean, to be completely honest, I wouldn't be getting these top fives. Because I mean, I have a hard time making setups, but he just comes in and bulks on them, and he just gets them, you know, set up and ready for the race. But tonight was it was all him, just all him.
Oh, copy that, Craig. Well, I am glad that you were both able to find each other. You guys make a great team. Both fast drivers. You take when you can. You don't force any matters. But when push comes to shove, you know exactly what to do. And here, once again, congratulations on your success here tonight. Look forward to seeing you 2 spots higher next week at Michigan. And any thoughts before I let you go?
Oh yeah. I don't know if y'all saw me in his car, but just a big shout out to Jerry Roy, up in heaven. He was with us tonight, and I gotta thank again Daniel, and I'm sorry for his loss, and all praise go to his family and my team and his team. Just if it wasn't for Jerry tonight, me and him wouldn't have got I wouldn't have got P3, and he wouldn't have stayed in the race. But big shout out to Jerry, and rest in peace, man.
Well, Craig, once again, congratulations on your success, and we are great thing you did right there. Good thing you are doing, running that amazing paint scheme on that machine. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, all thoughts go to the Smallwood family in their time of tribulation like this. And once again, Craig, congrats on your success, and see you again 2 spots higher next week.
Man, take it easy.
Well, Sean, we got another one in the books for this AMSOIL Sunday night PRL series. Round 9, round 10, we go on to Michigan. It's a new build. No telling what we're going to see next week.
Oh man, yeah, that will make things extra interesting. I'm very excited. Michigan International, and that race will be entitled the Ford Entertainment Group PC Sales. That's Ford Entertainment Group PC Sales. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight's race was the established traffic control round 9 of 13, season 9, Precision Racing League AMSOIL American Iracing Sunday series, brought to you by AMSOIL, specializing in synthetic lubricants for vehicles and equipment. And they are the first in synthetics. Check them out at amsoil.com or amsoil.com. Also brought to you in part by Transdo Cup. And Transdo is the Transdo Transport and Logistics, giving $75 to a driver with the cleanest record at the end of the season. But the driver has to complete 16 of the 20 races and must also complete 75% of every single race they race. And that's the website is transdo.ca. That's TRANSDO.ca. Specializing in flatbed transport services. Also check out PRL at PrecisionRacingLeague.com. Well, John, it's been a pleasure commentating up here in the booth with you, and thank you very much for being a part of the action. And any thoughts before we close off? Any thoughts?
Same here, Sean. It's just what a pleasure to work with you, man. It is so much fun, and a huge shout out to our viewers. We had a lot of viewers tonight, and we had a lot of action there on our chat, and just want to thank you guys for hanging with us. Hit us with your questions. We'll try to get you as much info as we can and keep you in the loop of what goes on here in the AMSOIL Sunday night series at the PRL.
Indeed, and this was live on the Online Sim Racing Network. Thank you for being a part of it. So next week's race at Michigan International Speedway. And I am Sean Zulu, David Everly, and Johnny Pierce. Thanks for watching, and have a good week.